I'm Highway Commissioner Alec Farmer, and I'd like to welcome you to the I-555 dedication ceremony. And before we begin today's program, I'd like to ask State Representative Brant Smith, one of the House sponsors of the I-555 state legislation, to give the invocation.
Would you bow your heads with me, please? Lord God, today we thank you so much for the meal that we've shared together, the friendships that have been renewed, and the celebration of reaching this milestone for Interstate 555. A lot of hard work and effort went into this over the years, and today we can finally celebrate and enjoy the culmination of many years and effort. We thank you for blessing us today with this fine meal. Bless the hands that prepared it. May you use us for your honor and glory. And we thank you for the way that you have helped Northeast Arkansas and the area prosper over the years. And may we be truly grateful. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Everybody, please continue eating, and those of you in line, go ahead and finish. I think there's plenty of food back there. We have a lot to cover today in a short amount of time. I know the governor's got some commitments. He needs to be in Mississippi County at about 2:15, so we're going to try to move along. But to begin today's dedication ceremony, I'd like to borrow former Jonesboro Chamber President Henry Jones's favorite saying. Isn't it a great day to be in Jonesboro and Northeast Arkansas? We have much to celebrate. A highway project that began in the late 60s, cost over $250 million, was bogged down in the St. Francis floodway for over a decade, and literally required an act of Congress to complete, has come to fruition. 15 years after the future interstate signs went up, this was anything but an overnight success, but today the future is finally here. I hope the message that we take away from here is that good things don't just happen. They require committed, concerted effort and cooperation and teamwork from the community level to the state capitol to Washington, D.C. We're here today not only to celebrate the dedication of I-555, but also to celebrate the people who, through commitment, cooperation, and common sense, made I-555 a reality. And there are a lot of people to thank. So please sit back and get comfortable, because this may take a little while. First, I do want to recognize Jeff Morris from Senator Cotton's office. There he is. Appreciate you being here today. Next, I'd like to recognize our city and county officials from the region. And if you would all stand up as I call the county you're from, I'd appreciate it. From all the city and county officials from Craighead County, would you please stand? Thank you. Do we have any from Crittenden County? There we go. Thank you. Appreciate it. Greene County. There we go. The mayor. Thank you. Oh, yeah. And from Poinsett County. Thank you. And from Lawrence County. Thank you. And did I miss anyone from any other counties? Please let me know. All right, thanks. For this interstate to occur, it required an act of the Arkansas General Assembly during a special session last May. I'm proud to say that the state legislation passed both the Senate and the House unanimously, 32-0 and 89-0. Now I'd like to ask State Senator John Cooper, who's one of the Senate sponsors of the legislation, to come up and recognize our state legislators. Senator Cooper.
You know, what an honor it is to be involved in such a great piece of legislation, and when you have good legislation, good things happen to it most of the time, I'd say, and that was certainly the case with this. It was a fun piece of legislation to run because it was just such good legislation. And I'm very grateful, I think all of you are too, that the governor put this on the call as an item of the special session, and it was an honor to be able to be asked to run this legislation, and it certainly was very successful. Would the legislators that are present here today please stand up? We have Representative Dan Sullivan from around here in Jonesboro, Jack Ladyman from a district around Jonesboro here, Representative Brant Smith, one of the co-sponsors and one of the ones that ran it in the House side for us, Senator Blake Johnson from represents the Greene County, and I don't know where all that district goes, Senator, but it's north of here up toward Corning and Rector and Paragoulin there, and Senator Linda Collins Smith from the Pocahontas area. And again, I do appreciate all the support that these legislators gave this piece of legislation as both co-sponsors and helped to run this legislation and voted for it on the floors of both houses. Thank you all, and God bless you, and have a wonderful day.
Now I'd like to recognize my fellow commissioners on the State Highway Commission. I consider myself very fortunate to serve with a group of commissioners who've dedicated themselves to addressing the most pressing needs of maintaining our existing highway system as efficiently and economically as possible while still planning for our future. Believe me, after being on there for a year, it's not an easy job, and I really respect the men I serve with. Chairman Dick Trammell, who hails from Rogers and Pocahontas, so dual citizenship, Northeast, Northwest. Vice Chairman Tom Schick from Little Rock couldn't be here. He's down in his back and sends his regrets. Frank Scott from Little Rock, our at-large member on the commission. And Robert Moore sends his regrets. He's from southeast Arkansas, Arkansas City. And if anybody knows where Arkansas City is, it's below the Arkansas River and next to the Mississippi River. And he's trying to keep water out of his home right now. So, but he wished he were here and sends his regrets. I want to recognize my wife, Carol, who's a deputy commissioner, I guess, for me up here. I know she feels like she's a commissioner sometimes when I come home from Little Rock. And Director Scott Bennett. Yeah. And I think Scott wants to come up and introduce his team that he's brought up here for the events.
Thank you, Commissioner Farmer. We've said it time and time again, doing something like this is no small task, and we have a lot of our top staff that are here today, and I want to introduce them, ask them to stand when I introduce you, and there are several of them here, so hold your applause till the very end. First, we have our Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer, Lori Tudor. We have our Deputy Director and Chief Engineer, Emmanuel Banks. Our Assistant Chief Engineer for Planning, Kevin Thornton. Our Assistant Chief Engineer for Design, Mike Fugit. our Assistant Chief Engineer for Operations, Tony Sullivan. And we have two of our district engineers, one, Walter McMillan, whose headquarters is in Paragould, and Rex Vines, whose headquarters is in Wynn. And they have really both ends of the section of Interstate 555. And also from this district, our district construction engineer, Alan Walter, district maintenance engineer, Brad Smithy. We have our Assistant Chief of Administration, Randy Ort. Where'd Randy go? And we have several from our Public Information Office. We have Danny Stracely, Public Information Officer, Glenn Bolick, and Rusty Hubbard, our photographer. And I'll tell you, these folks do a great job. There's no way that I could do what I do, no way the commission could do what they do without the support of our staff. And I travel around the country a lot, talk to a lot of my counterparts, and I'll put our staff up against any state Department of Transportation staff in the country. So I want to say thank you for everything that they've done. Now, there are also three other people that I want to recognize quickly, too. One of the things that we had to do in designating this section as Interstate 555 is satisfy the Federal Highway Administration that it had been built to interstate standards, and our Arkansas Assistant Division Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration is here, Pete Yelich. We also have the former director of the Arkansas State Highway and Transportation Department, Dan Flowers. Dan was, I think we started working on I-555 about when he started his career. So I'm sure he's glad to see this one come today. And also the executive director of the Good Roads Foundation for Arkansas, Craig Douglas, is here today. And I want to recognize Craig and thank him for his support too. Thank you.
And I just want to make a comment about Scott and his staff. They've been wonderful to work with this past year, especially all the work that was done in getting the I-555 legislation drafted and ready for the special session. It literally happened in a week or less than 2 weeks. I mean, everything happened so quickly. And I just want to tell all of you, thank you for making my job a lot easier. So I appreciate that. In addition to support from past elected officials, I know I saw former Speaker of the House of Arkansas Representatives, Bobby Hogue here, but Bill Alexander, Blanche Lincoln, Marion Barry, Tim Hutchison, and those of us who've traveled to D.C. to lobby Congress for highway funds. They're a group of local leaders, past and present, who over the years have gone above and beyond the call of duty. From the Jonesboro and Mark Tree bypasses in the 70s, to four-laning Highway 63 in the 80s, to interstate upgrades in the 90s and early 2000s, which brings us here today. These people who have given both their time and their resources, and in some cases a lot of resources, have made today's celebration possible. Hold your applause till we introduce everybody. There are some who are no longer with us, but their families are here. I'd like to recognize them. Joanne Martin family, represented by Florence and Jimmy Cooper, Mary Jo and Bob Gibson, Bobby Gibson, and Tim McCall. Please stand. My father, the former Highway Commissioner Dalton Farmer, who's represented here by his wife and my mother, Nora Farmer. Excuse me. Senator Claude Cash, represented by his wife, former Representative Joan Cash. Phil Jones, represented by Robert Jones. And Tom Loberg, represented by, I believe his grandson, Philip Poston. Philip, there you go. Thank you. Others who have contributed mightily to this effort, Mayor Marianne Arnold, Mark Tree. Ritter Arnold from Mark Tree. Bill Brewer, Paragould, thank you. Wallace Fowler. Mr. Fowler, stand up. Henry Jones. Thank you, Henry. Henry and my father worked closely together in the 80s. Appreciate you. Rick Rourks. Thank you, Rick. And John Trout. I hadn't seen Mr. Trout. Is he here? Oh. The city of Jonesboro, represented by Mayor Harold Parent. Craighead County, represented by County Judge Ed Hill, who's in the back. Thank you. And then the man who I think has been the driving force for the Interstate 555 for over 20 years, Mike Cameron. And as one of these people on this list told me earlier today, thank goodness this is finally here. Now I only have to return Mike's calls if I want to. So I appreciate all of you. This brings me to our special guest speakers who were also instrumental in making I-555 a reality. First and foremost, I want to say thank you all. You're all sitting here at this table. We're here today because of you and your support for this project. I'm a big fan of American history, and I read a lot of biographies. And there's an excerpt from a Teddy Roosevelt speech known as The Man in the Arena. It's inspired my involvement in public service, and anybody who's interested in public service should read that. It applies to all of our speakers today in one way or another. But when I think of this excerpt, I think of our first speaker. Governor Asa Hutchinson was sworn in as the 46th governor of Arkansas in January 2015. His career in public service spans 4 decades and includes service as the first Undersecretary of the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. Prior to that, he served as the Director of the Drug Enforcement Administration. He was elected to 3 terms in Congress, and in 1982, at the age of 31, was appointed by President Ronald Reagan as the nation's youngest U.S. attorney. Governor Hutchinson and his wife Susan have 4 children and 5 grandchildren. Since taking office last January, Governor Hutchinson has set in motion his plan to bring more jobs and economic growth to Arkansas. His achievements during his first year in office include guiding the passage of the biggest income tax cut in state history and an innovative idea to require computer coding classes in every public high school in the state, making Arkansas a national leader in this area. And of course, there was the fulfillment of Governor Hutchinson's campaign promise to this area to support Interstate 555. When he included a piece of legislation in a special session call list last May that allowed agriculture vehicles using Highway 63 to continue using it if it were ever upgraded to an interstate. This legislation became Act 11 of the first extraordinary session of 2015. And it was a crucial step in why we're here today. Would you please help me welcome Governor Asa Hutchinson?
Thank you. Thank you. It is terrific to be in Northeast Arkansas for such a significant occasion and to see such a group of leaders from all across this region gathered here to celebrate what you've worked so hard to accomplish. And Alec Farmer, he was an advocate, a pusher, and an educator in terms of I-555 long before I became governor and before he became a highway commissioner. And so, Alec, personally, thank you for guiding the ship, educating me, and making sure that we kept on the right track to make this happen. He's joined by the other highway commissioners who I've enjoyed working with, who really do a great job in advocating for highway development in this state that's so critical to our economic future. And I wanted to recognize our federal delegation that I'll mention again later, but Congressman Crawford and Senator Bozeman has been so instrumental in making this happen as well. And it was noted some of their predecessors in office that have fought this for many years. And whenever you think back, and I enjoyed coming up here and reading about the history of this development, and the 4-laning of this highway and this new interstate project. It actually began the year I graduated from high school. In 1968, that's when the vision for 4-laning 63 and putting funds toward that. So I know I've had 4 decades in politics. If you just move it back another decade, then I can say I started this when I was in high school. And, you know, Alec Farmer, he is the master of understatement. You noted when he stood up here, he said, this has not been an overnight success. The master of understatement. And you think about the length, the dedication, the perseverance to accomplish that. And it teaches us a lot about persistent leadership, sticking to it, not turning it back, not giving up on it, overcoming obstacles. And then you think about the obstacles that have been overcome. It took federal corrective legislation to make this happen. And I want to salute again Senator Bozeman and Congressman Crawford, because I know how difficult it is to get legislation through, even if you might consider it a technical fix, and this is more than a technical fix. They had a lot to do. They had to bring their colleagues to make sure they were united in this, and to get that legislation passed is a tribute to them. Please give them a round of applause. It took federal corrective legislation, and it took state corrective legislation. And Act 11 and our members of the General Assembly here who have been recognized that did a great job in shepherding this through the General Assembly, which is always tough, getting it on the call of the special session. The easy part was getting my signature on it, which I was delighted to do. But they get credit for the work that they accomplished in getting the state corrective legislation through that allows the agricultural vehicles to continue to use the 4-lane highway. And then the fourth thing is the funding, and that's probably what took the 40 years, because these are constrained times in terms of highway budgets, but through persistency over a long period of time, it was 4-laned and became interstate quality. What is the significance of this commitment and this success today? The significance is very simply, it gives everyone, every community in this room in Northeast Arkansas an additional calling card for economic development. As I go to China, as I go to Europe, as I talk about development and economic development in this state, you need to have the calling card of logistics and access. You now have strengthened your case. And by the way, you're not doing too well before the designation. I think it'll really take off even to a higher level with it. And so it's significant what has been done. But let's talk about the future for just a second. I'm curious as to what the next 40-year project is in Northeast Arkansas. I'm sure that you have shorter goals than that, much that we can accomplish, but a key part of that is the second special session of the legislature that I will call this year to pass a highway plan for Arkansas. Our federal colleagues did a tough job in getting the federal legislation through that really allocates to Arkansas $200 million more funding for highway development with one condition. And that is that we have our state matching funds, which is going to equate to $45 to $50 million a year. I've submitted a plan to accomplish that, but it needs the support of the legislature. It needs the support of all of our community. I think it's a reasonable plan, and I hope that it can draw that support so we can continue down that road of achievement. Someone said the road to success is always under construction. I like that. And so we've got a lot that we're constructing on here in Arkansas. Let's keep constructing because we want the success that hard labor brings. And I congratulate all of the leaders in this room that have made this day possible, and it makes the economic growth in Arkansas a real reality in our lifetime. Thank you all very much.
For a second there, I thought the governor was offering us a deal on some more, the next 40-year projects. So perked my ears up a little bit. A recent newspaper column described our next speaker as an uncommonly good and unassumingly nice man. As I've worked with him on this project over the last year, I can't think of a better way to describe him. Senator John Bozeman is Arkansas's senior U.S. Senator and has served in the Senate since January of 2011. Prior to his election to the Senate, Senator Bozeman served in the House for 5 terms. Senator Bozeman and his wife, Kathy, have 3 daughters and a granddaughter. He played football for the University of Arkansas while completing his pre-optometry requirements. Dr. Bozeman graduated from the Southern College of Optometry in 1977 and entered private practice that same year, co-founding a family business with his brother that would ultimately become a major provider of eye care in Arkansas. Senator Bozeman serves on 5 committees in the Senate: Agriculture, Appropriations, Environment and Public Works, which is highways, Rules and Veterans Affairs. I think you touch all the bases in Arkansas, Senator. He also chairs 2 subcommittees. When the I-555 designation was presented to Senator Bozeman, his first response was, "I'll do anything I can do to help." And that's exactly what he did. Through both the Appropriations Committee and the Environmental and Public Works Committee. In most cases, exemption language like we were proposing would only be placed in one bill. But Senator Bozeman included it in both the Federal Highway Authorization Bill and the Annual Highway Appropriations Bill. This doubled our chances for success in one of the bills if one of the bills had gotten bogged down in a committee by other issues, practically guaranteeing our success. Would you please help me welcome our friend in the United States Senate, Senator John Bozeman.
I love speaking after Alec and the governor. I don't have to adjust the mic. These are big guys. So thank you very much. It truly is an honor to be with you today. And I don't know what your next 40-year project's going to be, but I'll tell you tonight, this afternoon is the time to get it started because you've got a who's who of transportation officials in the audience today. And we really do appreciate all that you guys represent and the hard work that you've done for Arkansas. I also was a senior in 1968. I was at Northside in Fort Smith. Asa was at Springdale. We used to beat them regularly in everything. Asa's doing a tremendous job, as you all know, and it's interesting. You know, Asa went to DEA, and then there was a special election, so I took his place. And he was kind enough, really, to just go out of his way to introduce me to his buddies. Most of them now are running the show now in the House, or have moved to the Senate. People like Jerry Moran, Senator from Kansas, Roy Blunt, Senator from Missouri, and the list goes on and on. John Thune, who's one of the senior people in Republican leadership. But all of these great people like Asa that, again, took me under their wing. It is hard to believe, and yet I've been on Transportation Committee in the House or in the Senate since 2001, so I understand how you could have a project that started in 1968 and is just now concluding, really concluded in 2012 till you ran into the glitch, you know, with the needing the exemption with the farm vehicles. But it really was just everybody working together. We were able to pass a 5-year highway bill, which is so important. You know, guys on the Transportation Committee who used to regularly grab me by the throat about this, literally, about the importance. But I did understand the importance. And it's not only, you know, you create some jobs by building highways and things like that. That's all great. But the thing that happens once you get these things completed is the economic activity that comes about as a result of them, the jobs that are created. Again, that's the name of the game, and that's what everybody in this room works so very hard to do. And it was really a situation where you had all of these strange folks coming together. It was very partisan, not partisan, just the opposite. It was very bipartisan. Senator Inhofe from Oklahoma was the chairman of Environment and Public Works during this. Barbara Boxer was the ranking member. Those two have absolutely nothing in common except for infrastructure. They believe that the country needs to take care of its infrastructure. They believe that one of the main reasons we're the great country that we are is because of the infrastructure that we have. So everybody came together and got that passed, and in the midst of that, as Asa explained, and Rick will explain in a second, we were, kind of scheming how we could get the language that we needed to get that done as far as getting the exemption. So we were blessed and were able to do that. But I'll tell you, it wouldn't have gotten it done without all of you all working so hard. I'm sure that some of the people that worked so hard in 1968 to start the project aren't with us anymore, but the torch has been passed. Some are still here, but the torch has been passed through the years. I can't tell you how important it is. The meetings in Arkansas, the meetings when you come to Washington and explain to myself, explain to my staff, not only this project, but so many other things that we're trying to get done, the importance of that. It simply wouldn't get done. So give yourselves a big pat on the back. It's just a great example of everybody working together and not losing heart, losing faith. That's how you get these big things done. So thank you very much. And like I say, we look forward to working on the next 40-year project, but hopefully we'll be having a bunch of projects that don't take near as long that will have the economic benefit of this. Certainly, that's one of the very first things that businesses look at as they decide where they're going to locate is infrastructure. Having the interstate designation is a big deal for the region. All of you all know that. That's why you worked so hard. So again, like I say, we look forward to helping you with whatever we can help you with, but hopefully it'll be at a much greater pace. Thank you very much.
And I just want to once again, I don't know if everybody realizes, we have the governor, the senior senator of Arkansas, and our congressman here together for this event. I mean, this is just such a big deal. So, I'm so glad we're all here to celebrate it. Humble, common sense, quietly effective are some of the words I've heard used to describe our final speaker. Congressman Rick Crawford has served the people of the 1st District of Arkansas since January 2011. He and his wife Stacy have 2 children and live in Jonesboro. He's an Army veteran who served his country as an explosive ordnance technician, or EOD. And think of the movie The Hurt Locker, and except it was in a country that ended in Stan instead of Iraq. After his military service, Congressman Crawford attended Arkansas State University and graduated in 1996 with a degree in agriculture, business, and economics. He serves on the House Agriculture Committee, where he is the subcommittee chairman of the General Farm Commodities and Risk Management. And most importantly for us here today, he also serves on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where he is a member of the subcommittees on Water Resources and Environment, Economic Development, Emergency Management, and Highways and Transit. Everyone recognized here today played an important role in getting the I-555 designation. But Congressman Crawford was involved from the initial idea that getting an exemption for farm equipment to cross the floodway was possible, thereby saving the taxpayers $30 million with this common sense approach. He added the exemption language to the House version of the federal highway bill, and finally he served as a Senate House conferee to make sure the language stayed in the final bill, in the final draft of what became the FAST Act, which is the first long-term highway authorization bill in more than a decade, and that was signed into law on December 4th, 2015, finalizing our long journey with an act of Congress. Would you please join me in welcoming Congressman Rick Crawford.
Thank y'all, appreciate it. Well, I'm going to have to adjust the mic. Also, just to put things in perspective, the governor and the senator graduated high school in 1968, and I won't get into the math of all this, but I was still in diapers, so I appreciate their maturity and their leadership and guidance. particularly Senator Bozeman in Washington. I've gotten to know Senator Bozeman over the last few years. I've known Asa for several years and worked with him, I guess, since 2006. And I appreciate the both of you very much. These two gentlemen are leadership and political mentors who genuinely serve their constituents. They love people and they know what their responsibility is. And I thank them for their leadership and the example that they set and their mentorship that they provide. Sometimes mentors appear and you don't necessarily know you're a mentor, but they are. People are watching. They watch what you do. And I can remember some years back, I was trying to get a job and had a guy that I had worked with for a while and asked him for a letter of reference. And what he wrote has really kind of shaped my vision for life. And he said, what most people look at and call obstacles, Rick looks at and calls challenges and to be met. And so that has sort of, infused my vision for the way public service ought to be. It's so much more fun to say yes. You can't always say yes, but the first reaction really shouldn't be no. And so when we go back to 2010, and it was between Election Day and swearing in, I met with a group of folks here in Jonesboro, and they were very concerned about how we could accelerate the pace of 555, which at that time, as you know, was the future 555. And I'm going to tell you, there was some skepticism in that initial meeting because they didn't know how committed I would be. They really didn't know. I'm a new guy, and over the years, I believe we've come to form friendships and partnerships that will serve this community very, very well, and this region very, very well, through the folks that have been recognized and the work that they've done. One in particular who was so passionate about this and continues to be, I'm looking at him right now. He's a guy that will call you and text you and keep you informed whether you want to be or not. And it's been easy to support and work and move forward on your behalf because these people were so passionate about it and recognized the value proposition that Interstate 555 brings not only to Jonesboro, but to this region. People, look, Jonesboro is the big town in my district. I serve 30 counties. I live in Jonesboro, but we have to broaden our scope and recognize the mayor of Turl is here. And I said, Mayor, this benefits you. And what we want to do in Turl is figure out how we capitalize on this opportunity to tie into this very, very important artery for commerce and how we can revitalize communities all along Interstate 555. Mayor Arnold from Mark Tree, this benefits you, and I got to visit with her last night, and we agree that this is a great opportunity for communities all along Interstate 555. But it doesn't stop in Jonesboro, because I would venture to say that folks in Paragould and Greene County and even further beyond benefit from this, because the economic activity accompanying Interstate 555 will enhance the economy of the region. And when you're talking about trying to invite businesses to Northeast Arkansas, as you've heard, and every economic developer will tell you, we've got to check the box that says Interstate 555. We had an interstate all along. It was built to interstate specs, has been for years. It's been great, but we couldn't check the box. As the governor alluded to, look what has happened in Northeast Arkansas over the last few years when the rest of the state was struggling, when the rest of the country indeed was struggling through a very tepid economy. And yet Northeast Arkansas has been on a steady trajectory upward. Now imagine how it's going to look when we can check the box, Interstate 555. It's a great, great day for us. For me personally, let me share something with you. It's very frustrating to be a legislator. And I'll tell you why. Here's my personality is I like to work at something, I like to sweat at something, I like to build something, and I like to look over and say, I just built that. It could be as simple as mowing the lawn. Now look, my wife will look at that and she'll go, well, that's really not very good. But I've got a sense of accomplishment because I built this cabinet, or I did that, or even mowed the lawn. Because you've expended energy, you've put something into it, an effort into something, and you can look back on it and say that was an accomplishment. In Washington, it's very, very difficult to do that. And so you're dealing with people who don't share that same passion. You deal with people that don't necessarily see the value that you're trying to bring home to folks, and it can be very, very frustrating. And so I liken this to the job that we do. My wife is a mental health therapist, and I was unburdening myself to her, which I do quite frequently. And she's got a pretty good beat on me, and so I'm telling her about it. This is the way it is in Washington. But then we come home and we see our great staff here who are here today. Andrea Allen, our district director and deputy chief of staff, Ashley Shelton, who they work behind the scenes to make sure that things are happening on your behalf. They're actually meeting a need today. They are the conduit between you and the federal government, or the buffer, in most cases, between you and the federal government. They're meeting a need today. In Washington, we're just sort of grinding away at something. We're just sort of grinding away, and maybe we'll see results, maybe we won't, and it's somewhat of an abstract concept. So I tell my wife this, and she says, well, Rick, what you're describing is the difference between therapy and casework. Casework meets a need today. Therapy, you might be helping somebody, but you'll never know if you're actually getting through to them. You may not even be around to see the results. So I don't know if she was telling me that I need therapy or everybody in Washington needs therapy, but I thought that was an interesting analogy that she shared and helped me put things in perspective. And I can tell you, on the subject of needing therapy, I think Ashley probably thought I needed therapy when we were in the markup for the highway bill, and my amendment came up on 555. And there's a little exchange back and forth, and there may have been some people watching on C-SPAN. Literally tens of people watch C-SPAN every day. There may have been some people watching this markup take place. And she's back there in the anteroom, where the staff congregates, and she texts me different things. Your bill's up next or whatever. Your amendment's up next. And so we're going through this, and I introduce the amendment, read the amendment. I've got an ally, a Democrat from Minnesota, who has a similar project, and he's on my side, and we're going to get this thing done because we've got bipartisan support for this common sense initiative. And we have a little exchange, and then we hear that, this is the scene you see on, blah, 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 right? And the chairman gets in my ear and he says, hey, I've been talking to the ranking member. If you'll withdraw the amendment, we'll put it in the conference report. And I'm like, I don't know about this. Trust me, this is the way to do it. Okay. We went on ahead, and so then I go, if I have your assurance that we'll work with this, I'll withdraw the bill. I didn't hear her fall and hit the floor in the anteroom, but I'm guessing that she probably did. And at that point, she probably thought I needed therapy because she had put so much effort forth and was probably scratching her head herself, wondering what's going on. There was a method to that madness. It got what we needed done. And that is sort of the illustration of some of behind-the-scenes things that happen, the inside baseball that you don't know about, to come to an effective end and a productive end to a 40-year project. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't something that'll make the headlines, but it's something we worked very, very hard for. And I'll leave you with this. I did a radio interview this morning, and this phrase was coined, and it sort of made me think, it's amazing what you can do with common sense and 4 big yellow signs. That sounds like a country song. So I'm racking my brain right now to see how I can work that into a country song. But listen, this is one that we are so proud of. Thank you all so much. God bless you.
And the story of how that came to be is a perfect example of quietly effective, just working behind the scenes, not a lot of frills, and just getting things done and getting results through common sense solutions. So I appreciate you. Now, Commission Chairman Dick Trammell and Highway Director Scott Bennett would like to make a special presentation and make a few comments.
I'm not sure that there's much else that could be said about Interstate 555. It has been a long process. It is here, and that's a great thing. That is a great thing for Northeast Arkansas. Everybody has said We spent $250 million upgrading US 63 to interstate standards. About $65 million of that was earmark money. The rest of it was the commitment of the department and the commission to make this a reality. That was a great thing. But it did take all of us together to get it done. From Congress naming part of this as a high priority corridor back in the 90s to the designation as future Interstate 555. That's hard to say. We're just going to start calling it the triple nickel. That may be the best thing to do. It's a little hard to say sometimes. We should have named it 155. It would have been a lot better. Completed all the improvements to make it a reality in 2012, and there was a little obstacle, became a challenge, of the sunken lands and how we get across the sunken lands. Well, the easy answer was we built a frontage road. We built a frontage road, a lot of bridge, about $32 million. And I tell a lot of people all the time, we really don't have any problems that money won't solve. That's not the case with a lot of areas, but we really don't have any problems that money won't solve, and that would have solved it. But we didn't want to do anything to the detriment of the agricultural industry. That's a huge part of the economy in the state. And we didn't want to do anything to the detriment of economic development in Jonesboro. So we turn really obstacles and challenges into opportunities. And I think everyone was looking for those opportunities and finally got that approval. From the federal and state side, the legislation, the opportunities presented themselves. From the call for the special session right after the regular session this past year, and the question was, hey, we've just got this one little issue that we would love for you to include. Don't think it's going to be any big deal. To the federal side, hey, we've got this one little issue, and we see exemptions that pop up in states all the time. And, I can't tell you how many times I've been down at the Capitol in meetings and a legislator is presenting their bill, and the whole discussion is, this is just a little old cleanup bill, doesn't really do anything. Well, these were really just a couple of little cleanup bills, but they did a lot. And we want to say thanks to everybody. Finally got Federal Highway Administration final approval maybe a week or two ago. We told them, well, we're glad you gave it to us because we're putting up the signs anyway. We're not going to wait on you because we know we have all this other in place. Does anybody, I'm going to ask this question, and if you were with us last night, or if I told you just a little while ago, don't answer it. Does anybody have any idea how many US 63 signs we're going to have to replace with Interstate 555 signs? I'm sure you've never driven down the road and counted, hey, there's a US 63 sign. Anybody did she just whisper in your ear? Oh, okay. And I'll say this too. The thud that you heard was probably not just from Ashley, it was probably from me in Little Rock. More like an earthquake when that happened, but we're glad that everything happened that way. 740 signs in that 44-mile corridor are going to have to be replaced.
Now be sure and tell them we recycle.
We recycle. We are a green agency. We recycle signs. A lot of those signs were in need of replacement anyway. Now we're going to put them up just with a different color and a different number on them. Our crews will be out starting Monday replacing those signs. So you will see over the next 2 or 3 weeks our crews on the side of the roads replacing those signs. So we will have Interstate 555 signs up before too long. Now, I want to say one other thing, too. We were really ready to start spending $32 million on a frontage road. But with the leadership that we've had and with this opportunity that we've taken advantage of, now we also get the opportunity to take that $32 million and invest it in other improvements in Northeast Arkansas. So you're going to see a lot more work coming up in Northeast Arkansas in the very near future. And again, that is going to be thanks to the leadership of everyone at the federal and state level to make that happen. So we do have a few mementos that we want to hand out. Now, first, I want to again recognize the state legislators that were involved, and there is a memento for you on the table up here with your name on it, and I'll show you what it is. It's a miniature version of the I-555 sign. Now, that's actual the type of material we use for the sign, the actual sheeting we use on the sign. So I want you all to stand up again. I want to make sure we recognize you all again. Senator Cooper, Senator Johnson, Senator Colin Smith, Representative Smith, Brant Smith, Representative Sullivan, Representative Ladyman. Were there any other of our state legislators that came in? Okay. Well, you have one of these mementos up here in a box with your name on it, so please pick it up on your way out the door because we really appreciate your role and your support in making this a reality. So let's give those folks a hand. Now, we actually have 4 other mementos that we want to hand out. And this wouldn't have happened without the leadership of all of these folks. You know, when we were looking for opportunities, one of the things that we talked about was, okay, we have a United States Senator that's a member of the Environment and Public Works Committee. We have a United States Congressman that's a member of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. There's no better opportunity to take advantage of this than right now. And with their leadership, they made this a reality. They've both been very gracious to us. I mean, whenever we go to Washington, I hear people a lot of times, their schedules are very busy. Their staff has to meet with a lot of people, but every time I've gone to Washington and asked to meet with them, they've been very gracious to meet with me personally, and I really appreciate that. The Governor Hutchinson and the leadership that he's shown made a great, your best appointment to the Highway Commission. Alec Farmer. Now, before you all clap, I should have said before you clap, it's been his only appointment to the Highway Commission so far. Senator Hutchinson and his leadership, always been gracious also to meet with me, have a great relationship, to be able to speak openly and honestly about everything that we have going on and his desire to help us out. And we appreciate that. And I do want to mention Commissioner Farmer too. Alec has been great to work with in this year, has shown great leadership. You know, a lot of it is, hey, and it's kind of the way I do too. Ask questions, you know. Why can't we do this? Why do we do that? How can we do this? And that's really a sign of a good leader. And it really makes people think. And that's really a lot of what happened. He showed a lot of great leadership. This was a priority, not just for him, but for the whole region. And we wanted to make this a reality. So for you 4, for Senator Bozeman, Congressman Crawford, Governor Hutchinson, Commissioner Farmer, would you all please come up front? And Mr. Trammell. And we actually have a little bigger memento for you all. Now, if you all want us to ship those to your offices, we will absolutely ship them.
We can carry mine.
You can carry yours.
Let's do a picture.
Yeah, turn it around and we'll get a picture. So we will, if you want us to ship them to your Washington office, we will, or just let us know. Okay.
Thanks. I'll probably have Andrew ship it.
Okay, well, that's fine. We don't mind doing it. And I'll tell you, we started out this concept with those mementos of having the actual size of the Interstate 555 sign in there, and you couldn't hardly pick it up. So we thought, well, maybe we'll shrink it down a little bit. But we just wanted to take this opportunity to say thanks to all of you all for your support. You all have been gracious to host us last night, today. This is a great event. I'll say this, it was a great decision not to actually have a sign up and unveil it outside today. That was really smart, and I'll say this too, I'm glad it's not about 30 degrees outside with the weather we have. So this has been a great week for Northeast Arkansas. And again, you'll see the signs starting to pop up beginning next week. And we really thank you all for all your support and everything you've done.
One more time, would you join me in thanking Governor Hutchinson, Senator Bozeman, and Congressman Crawford for all of that. And the legislature. You guys, thank you. The 90th General Assembly, too. Thank you guys. There's some people that I want to thank before the sign unveiling that helped put our program together today. Chris Barber and St. Bernard's Healthcare for providing the venue and the food, and this was a great place to have this event. Thank you. Mayor Harold Perrin and the City of Jonesboro, they provided us the bus this morning for a tour of the city. We took the commission and the senior staff around, and for the traffic control out here. I understand we used up every space, so thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Glenn Bolick with the Highway Department was the coordinator for this event through the highways, and Glenn, you did a great job. Thank you. And then we had a local I-555 committee. We had Dan Pierce, the former chairman of the ASU Board of Trustees. We had Mark Young and Donna Hope with the chamber. Stand up. Please stand up. I thought you guys were here. And Beverly Nick Stone was sharp, who chaired this committee. And listen to this. She chaired this committee in the middle of a wedding, 2 grandbabies, and she got the flu this past week. And she looks great today. And I appreciate her. I appreciate all of you guys for the work you put in to make this such a big success. Please give everybody a round of applause. And Chris Conroy. I'm going to be looking at Channel 8 News tonight on the weather, because I hope there's going to be a new golden red line on the weather map that goes from Lake David up to Jonesboro that's going to have I-555 on it. So if they don't have it on there, it's there. All right. I told you I was going to ask you about that. All right. Well, I'll be looking tonight. Again, thank you, everybody. For the sign unveiling, with all the state legislators, join the Highway Commission, our guest speakers, and Scott Bennett up here.